Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com.
What is the status of a Pareve food that was cooked in a Ben Yomo meat pot? May it be used for eating with dairy, or vice versa, if it was cooked in a dairy pot, may it be used for eating with meat? Such as in the example that when cooked pasta in a meat pot, can you now mix that pasta with cheese? So in the previous halacha we discussed that the answer to this question is dependent on a few factors, and which we have already clarified that if the pot was dirty with leftover meat, then the Pareve food becomes meaty if it didn't have 60 times against it. Likewise, if a sharp vegetable was cooked inside of this pot, then it causes it to become like the same status of the pot. So if it's a meat pot, then the Pareve food now becomes meaty due to the sharpness in its ingredients. And it cannot be eaten with dairy, even b'di'evet. If it was mixed, everything becomes forbidden. However, if you're using a clean meat pot without any sharp ingredients such as a regular pasta bag and water and a little bit of salt, then if the pot is not Ben Yomo, has not been used with hot meat in the past 24 hours, everyone agrees the pasta remains Pareve and may even initially be eaten together with dairy foods. Although we brought a dispute of who may initially do so with intent to eat with dairy foods, and we said that it's best to use a milchik pot unless one is not available, in which case you can use a fleshik pot that's not Ben Yomo and cook pasta to eat with dairy. Now, for our subject. The pot is clean, the ingredients are not sharp, but the pot was used within the past 24 hours for hot meat, such as you just finished Shabbos. You cleaned out the chulent pot that had hot chulent only a few hours ago, and you now cooked pasta in it, and someone wants to eat the pasta with cheese. So this enters us into the famous subject in halacha in the laws of basar v'chalav, coined not bar not neisin tam by bar neisin tam, and has a major dispute amongst the Rishonim and Poskim, as we will clarify. In terms of what is now the status of this pasta, of this Pareve food, may it be eaten with dairy or not. So we'll begin with the Talmud, with the Gemara. The Gemara in Chulin 111b says a kind of cryptic statement which leads to the discussion and controversy amongst the Rishonim. A person placed hot fish on a meat pot. The Gemara says that fish may now be eaten with dairy. Even though you placed it in a meat pot, it's considered not barnat, and the fish is not considered fleshik, it's still considered parve, and you can eat with milchs. What does this mean? That even if this pot of meat was just used within the past 24 hours with hot meat and contains fresh meat taste in its walls, and therefore when you place the fish on it, the hot fish extracts that meat taste and enters it and absorbs it into its body, into its mass, nonetheless, the fish is considered Pareve. How? Why? It has meat taste inside of it that it absorbed through the walls of the meat pot. The answer is the Gemara emphasizes not bernat. When does meat taste pose a problem to be cooked with milk? When it's a good quality fresh meat taste. But if it's an indirect meat taste that already traveled through a pot and now traveled to the fish, and then once again will have to travel to the milk, then it is not a problem. This is called not bernat te'etera, and therefore the fish remains Pareve. So the Gemara seems very clear. What's the rule for controversy? Very simple. What's the case in the Gemara that it was referring to? Does it refer to a piece of hot fish that was placed on a cold pot that was used for meat within the past 24 hours? Does it refer to a pot of fish that was being cooked on the fire and that pot was Ben Yomo of meat? Now you want to eat that fish together with dairy? And above all this, was the Gemara's case even initially, even lechatchila, that you may do so only b'di'evet if it already happened? So we have a variety of opinions in the Rishonim and the Poskim. Some Rishonim and Poskim rule that the Gemara's case refers to not just a case that you took hot fish from a Pareve pot and placed it on a meat pot that's Ben Yomo, but even if you actually cooked the fish in a meat pot, or even roasted the fish in a meat pot that's Ben Yomo, nonetheless, since the taste it contains is indirect of meat, therefore there is no problem in eating it with dairy. So in answer to our original question, this pasta that you just cooked Matzei Shabbos in your freshly cleaned chulent pot that was used over Shabbos may be eaten with cheese. Who rules this way? So rules the Rambam in Macholes Asuros 923, Rashi Rabbeinu Tam, Riazokin Sefer HaTruma. the Russian Chulin, and so is the ruling of the Mechaber in Shulchan Aruch, chapter 95, Halach 1, and so is the ruling for all the Sfardim, and so is the custom of the Sfardim. Halacha l'maisa for them, any Pareve non-sharp, non-chara food cooked in a meat pat, whether the meat pat is ben yemei, not ben yemei, was used for 24 hours, wasn't used, it remains Pareve, may be eaten even initially with the opposite food, with milk. Now, may one even initially, according to this approach, cook Pareve food in a meat pot with intent to eat with dairy? So this is already a dispute as to how to understand the Gemara when it says its case meant even initially or only if it already happened. And practically most poskim rule that even according to this approach, one may not initially cook the Pareve food in the Ben Yomo meat pot with intent to eat with dairy. So concludes the Shach, the Alter Rebbe, the Taz, Rabbeinu Yerucham, and many other poskim, Rishonim and Achreinim, including Sfardi poskim like the Ben Ish Chai of Chesed Kafachai. All those others rule that even initially one may do so, and so rules the Beis Yosef in Bedek Habayis, and so was the ruling of Rav Ovadia Yosef and Yabia Omer 44 and 94. What about Ashkenazim? All this was for the Sfardim, the first approach. So the second approach is that the Gemara was referring to a case that you took the fish and you placed it on a meat pot. Not that it was cooked in a meat pot. But if indeed it was cooked in a meat pot, it's too fresh of a taste of meat, and it's forbidden to mix it with dairy. So is the ruling of Rivan, the name of Rashi, Issa Veheter, the Mordechai, Rabbeinu Yerucham, and so is the opinion of the Ramah in chapter 95, Halacha 2, and the conclusion of the Ramah there is, and this is the Halacha L'maisa for Ashkenazim, that initially we suspect for this opinion, so if a Pareve non-chara food was cooked in a clean meat pot, that is Ben Yemei, we do not mix that food with milk. It's considered Becheskat Bisari, as the lingo is. However, b'di'evet, if someone already went ahead and mixed it with cheese, we're lenient, and you don't eat 60 times, and everything remains kosher. So if someone took this pasta that cooked in the chulet, pat that was just clean Matzei Shabbos, and mixed it with cheese, you don't have to scream at them. They can continue eating the pasta and cheese b'di'evet. It's only initially, according to Ashkenazim, we don't mix it. Furthermore, there are more rules that even initially you're allowed to eat it inside of a milchik vessel, even though you can't remove it while it's out with a milchik vessel. So you can wait for the pasta to cool down, and then put it on a milchik bowl, and eat it without any milk. So to summarize, if you cooked a Pareve non-sharp food such as pasta in a clean meat pot, and the pot was used with hot meat within the past 24 hours, according to the Sfardim, you can go ahead and mix it with cheese. Once it's taken out of its meat pot, and according to Ashkenazim, you may not initially do so, but if it was done, everything remains kosher and you may continue eating your meal.
Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com. Our free services of making Torah knowledge available to the public depends on donors like you. Please help us continue our work through making even a small contribution at Shulchanaruchharav.com under the Daily Halacha Dedication section or in the subscription page. Also, check out our online courses and many Sefarim available for purchase that will both enhance your Torah knowledge and help support our work.